Real Conversations in the QC is sponsored by Essentra Credit Union.
Hello and welcome to Real Conversations in the Quad Cities. In this episode, we talk about the rising issue of chronic absenteeism in schools and how students, teachers, and parents are affected by this in different ways. Kayla Page made her Real Conversations debut this month by talking with Fillmore Elementary teacher Rolanda Butler and Rock Island teacher Jaron Williams. They talked about why it is so important for students to be in class and how students being absent affects teachers as well.
I'm here with Jaron Williams, an English teacher at Rock Island High School. Hi, Jaron.
Hello.
So, how difficult is it you as a teacher to facilitate learning on a daily basis and execute lesson plans when, say, given half of your students may be out on any given day?
It's extremely challenging. The way that I approach teaching my class here, regardless of whether it's an honors class or a traditional English class or a co-taught classes, I try to incentivize the students to be here so that they can get the work done here. The students who need extra time may have a little homework, but at least they can start the work here and ask any questions they may have before the end of our time together. So, but that's difficult when the students aren't here. The assignments are usually posted at Google Classroom, but they don't always read the assignments or they don't always read the instructions. So, and depending on how much they missed, they fall further and further behind, which is really unfortunate. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you say incentivize, how do you do that? How do you execute that throughout your class?
Well, I just let them know. Like I coach as well as I teach, so I know that if you're involved in extracurricular activities, you know, time is precious after school and in the evening. So I recognize it and I try to make it so that if you're in class, you can pretty much finish all of your work in class, which won't be their experience the entire time they're in high school, but at least freshman year, hopefully. And they find that useful because, again, if you're not in class and you have to spend time outside of class trying to figure things out, and depending on what we're working on, you know, it might not always be easy to navigate the instructions or the work.
Gotcha. Yeah, now Black students are, of course, already statistically less proven to go and attend college. How do you feel like chronic absenteeism affects that high student achievement?
I feel like just because, you know, students don't know what they don't know. So when they come in from the junior high, they expect that high school is probably really similar. It might be a little harder, but they have no idea. So then depending on what experience they had at the junior high, they may come to high school motivated to learn. But if they come here and they're not motivated to learn, then they're certainly not thinking about post-high school opportunities. And so making sure that, you know, we get them off on the right foot. Because for me, since I only teach freshmen, my goal is to make sure that they are prepared for 10th grade. Mm-hmm. And if they're prepared for 10th grade, they should be prepared for any high school English class after that. But certainly understanding the scope and sequence, kind of the order of things, and knowing that if they develop good study habits now, they develop the skills that they need to go on to college after, then they should be fine. But again, a lot of those things can't happen if you're not in the class.
Absolutely. Understood. Now, how do you think factors such as transportation barriers, disengagement, lack of belonging, definitely obviously mental health is a huge topic of conversation right now. How do you feel like these things also add to the issue of chronic absenteeism?
In Rock Island, Milan, transportation should not be a factor that works against students. Every student has the opportunity to take mass transit for free. So transportation shouldn't be an issue. I do realize that some folks have like whatever mental like block against showing up, catching the bus. Like, not that they're too good to catch a bus, but sometimes they think they're too good to catch a bus, so they won't. Well, if you can't catch the bus, then you should walk to school, depending on where you live. Like, you should be realistic about your transportation issues. But transportation is, of all the things that you just named, shouldn't be a barrier to students accessing their free education. And it's hard as somebody who teaches freshmen to see that, because there are students who do arrive at school and they don't necessarily make connections with the teachers, and the ones who don't make connections with their peers tend to be the ones I notice first in terms of lack of engagement. So myself and I think my peers, we tend to try to make sure that we connect with them and just check in, like, hey, how's it going? You know, sometimes when students feel like they can trust you, they open up. So maybe they have a history with the student in the class, and that might be a reason why they're not focusing or even coming to class. Like, I'm in a class with somebody I don't like, and those are very real concerns. So, you know, when I try to develop advocacy skills, self-advocacy skills. So making sure like, hey, now that you're in high school, a skill that's going to serve you well all your life is being able to speak up for yourself. And so, if you're not necessarily comfortable approaching me, hopefully you can approach another adult in the building and let them know what's going on with you. Because if you're not saying anything on your behalf, we don't know what we don't know, right? And then we can't help you find success. So sometimes students try to go it alone, which is really unfortunate because when you're 14 years old, maybe 15 years old, you don't have enough experience in life to understand how you could be hurting yourself because you're not speaking up for yourself. So, and mental health is obviously a real issue too. Like with social media and phones, like it's so different than when I was in school in terms of bullying. Like teachers, you could see bullying before cell phones became a thing. Right. Whereas,
now it's all digital,
there's like a whole culture of bullying out there that most of us aren't aware of. And sometimes because of snitching or whatever, kids aren't necessarily forthcoming with that information until a situation escalates to something it shouldn't have become because of some back and forth on social media or some other stuff that's happening in the family or in the community. So, I mean, the kids they are bringing a lot of challenges to the building with them, and they need to know that the staff is relatively mindful of that. But again, it's hard to offer support when you aren't like putting out there that you need support. Absolutely. And so then when you're trying to go it alone and you're trying to figure out how you can navigate it, which is admirable in a sense, but when you can't do it and then you're making school harder than it needs to be for you, like that's a major concern.
Right, absolutely. Now, oftentimes we'll hear a lot of students say, they don't find school fun, they don't find it engaging, they don't find anything enjoyable about it. How do you as a teacher, redefine what fun looks like and means in a school setting?
Well, for a long time, I thought my personality was an asset that would help students overcome some of that. But the older I get and the more our society relies on iPads and iPhones or other tablets or smartphones, it makes it difficult, especially for somebody who teaches English. Because, when we can, we try to gamify a few things and keep it fun, but obviously reading is a skill that's really important. And when you're reading like literature, you need to be able to make pictures with your mind. And so like some students struggle with that more than they did when I started teaching. So again, there is a challenge for us as teachers. What are we doing to try to meet the students where they are, but still trying to provide the education that we know is important as we prepare them not only for the next grade, but for college or career or military or trade school, whatever they may have planned after high school.
Gotcha. And now you're also a track and cross country coach?
I am.
Yeah, so tell me more. I'm like, with that, that's obviously a huge deal. You have the teacher perspective and you also have the extracurricular side. How do you think that helps or worsens participating in extracurricular activities? Does it help or worsen kind of just the overall attendance factor?
Yes, I try to make it so that it positively impacts the students' experience here at Rock Island High School. My first goal for them is that, you should be making progress to graduation. So it's never if you graduate, but when you graduate from Rock Island High School. If you're making progress towards graduation, we're not talking about eligibility. But if we have to talk about eligibility, it's kind of like a roll call type situation with the students where most kids take 7 classes during the 8-period day, and they know they have to be passing 5 classes. So, if you've gotten off track a little bit, that's where the eligibility is. But again, if you are participating in a sport, and especially a sport that I coach, I'm very vocal about my expectation that you will graduate from Rock Island High School. So if you're doing that, eligibility isn't something that we spend a bunch of time on because I want you to graduate from Rock Island High School.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm here with Rolanda Butler, a special education teacher at Fillmore Elementary School. Rolanda, thank you for joining me today on the topic of chronic absenteeism. So I'll get started. Just how difficult is it for you on a daily basis to facilitate learning, execute lesson plans when, say, half of your students may be absent on any given day?
So I'm going to take it from that classroom perspective because I'm a special education teacher, so I'm going to talk about both of those. Coming from that classroom teacher, it's very difficult because we have a pacing guide for like our math and our reading instruction. So it's like so many X days you have this to complete, and then X many days you have this to complete. So if you have like half of your kids gone and you have this lesson plan, it can be very challenging. So when we have those students that's absent, a lot of times the content might spiral back around, but when it comes back, it's with more rigor. It's more rigorous, so it's not like that foundation where it was like at that beginning stage. So it makes it hard because you're trying to play catch up. So a lot of times, what we do, and I've been in classrooms supporting teachers, we might have a small group where we might pull those kiddos that are absent. We'll pull them to that small group and try to close those gaps.
So there's always an effort to get them to where they are.
It's always an effort to get them where they are. It's a challenge sometimes, but it's always an effort to get them where they're at. When you look in the lenses of myself as a special education teacher, those kids are already, they're already kind of like behind where they need to be at. So when it comes to where I'm at, they're already behind. So it makes it even harder because we're trying to play catch up. And when they're not here, it makes it even harder because they're falling even farther behind.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand. And you kind of answered another question right at the same time, just because special needs students always require extra attention, extra care.
Mm-hmm.
How do you cater to that need in terms of, when you already are, needing more extra attention and then you're absent, just kind of what is that battle like?
It can be challenging, and because a lot of times the kids know that they're not where they're at. They know that they can't keep up with what the other kids are doing in their gen ed classroom, and then when they get to my classroom, it's still a challenge for them. And so sometimes that comes up with that where they're absent from school because it's too hard for them. So a lot of it goes to building that relationship with them and them know, you know what, I know this is a challenge for you, but we're gonna work through this together. We're gonna get through this together. I go back to at the beginning of the school year, we would have like bunch of in-services. So we had one, it was the one lady, it was TED Talk, and I can remember she was talking about this one student, and he was a struggling student, and he had a math quiz, and they had like 10 problems on the math quiz, and he only got 2 right. And he said, well, did I fail? And she said, yeah. She said, but you know what? You on the road, you got 2 right. So it's always that positivity, being positive with them.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
I understand. Now, when it comes to how do you feel the sense of lack of belonging or mental health or other just barriers in general, transportation, homelessness, how do you think those factors contribute or don't contribute to absenteeism?
Oh, it contributes a lot. So I'm going to talk about that in 3 sections. I'm going to talk about the homeless thing because we know the time that we live in now. We have a lot of families that are transient, that they are homeless. We know that. So we do have one thing, and it's a national policy. It's the McKinney-Vento Act. And what that is that it's a law that you have to provide transportation for those kids to be at school, even if they're displaced. So let's say, for instance, a family here at Fillmore is displaced. They might be staying at a hotel out in Bettendorf, but we want to make sure that they have that familiarity, that they are in their building, that they're same teachers, they're same friends, all those different things. So we work, our administrators, our family liaison, they work to make sure that those kiddos are in their building. So that they provide transportation. They work with our bus department for the district, and they make sure that they have transportation here at school. A lot of times, again, it could be embarrassing, like being picked up at a hotel. A lot of times they're the first one on the bus. So like people don't know that they're going to school, that they're picked up at a hotel. They're usually the last ones to get off the bus. So I think that's a good thing about that. Just to make sure that they do have that consistency. We're fortunate too, like with the mental health, and I know that's an issue with a lot of our kiddos now because they do face a lot of trauma and different things, but we want to make sure that when they are here at school that they have that support, whether we have our counselors within the building, we have an alignment with Bethany Homes, Vera French, all those things, just to give them those supports that they need. And even with that, they might need to talk to someone because I'm out of my home, I'm out of my room, I'm out of my comfort zone. But we want to make sure at school you're still at home and you have that comfort zone.
Absolutely. Now, do you feel like there's any way for schools to better communicate, whether that be with teachers and parents, just overall, when there's a lack of absence, when there's absence happening? Do you feel like there's a better way for that to be communicated so that, the issue can come to some kind of solution?
Well, I think one thing our district, and I'm really proud of that, is that it's not only a state thing, but we know it's a national issue. Students' absence, we know that that's a national thing. It's just not a Davenport thing. It's like a nationwide thing, as I said before. So one thing our district has done, last year, you wasn't probably here in town, but last year you would see like all the schools, they would have Strive for 5, and they wanted to make sure that we're striving for kids to be at school 5 days a week. You're here Monday through Friday. So this year on our district website, they have where talking about attendance and how important it is for kids to be at school. So what they're doing this year is like the first day, 30 days of school, they have the thing where you're here 90% of the time. We're going to have a special treat like lunch on the lawn provided by our food and nutrition. So we're like pumping that up. But also here at Fillmore, I'm just going to dote on my school a little bit. Here at Fillmore, like this past year, for instance, we had a student that was in 3rd grade. We knew that attendance was an issue with that student. We had a spreadsheet with those kids' names on that. So we reached out to those families, like with the postcard, letting them know, like, hey, I'm your child's teacher for this school year. This is the day school starts. This is the hours. I'm looking so forward for them to be in my classroom. Also, another thing that we are looking at is if we see a student that's missed 3 days in a row, that we're going to reach out to them to see why they're not at school, because it's so important for them to be here. If they're not in these seats, they're missing out on learning, and we got a lot to do to get them where they need to be at. Yeah. Absolutely. And we know that the pandemic, attendance was an issue before the pandemic, but I think when that happened, it just made it even more so an issue, and we're just trying to get our kids back on the track of teaching them what they need.
Absolutely. Now, do you feel like chronic absenteeism is more prominent or concentrated in Black populations, or if so, why or why not?
You know what? I'm going to be honest to tell you, it's an issue in all our populations, but I think in our community, sometimes our families think about like their experiences when they were in school. They may have had a negative experience in school, but me, myself, as a teacher, I try to build a relationship not only with my students, but with my parents too. And just making sure that I'm there with them, and not always calling them with the negative things, but when it's something positive, I want to call and let them know that too, because probably their experiences when they were in school was probably like it was a lot of negative things. So it's like I don't want to go, because all they're gonna do is just call my mom or just tell me all the things that I'm not doing good. So it's just like you want to make sure that you're telling them all the good things that they're doing too, as well. And there's an issue, just like we got off the track, but tomorrow we're gonna get back on the track again. Absolutely. And not bearing about what had happened in a negative way, but just being positive about those things that happened with them. I just recall I had one student, he had missed a couple of days of school, and some of the kids in the neighborhood was saying, well, he moved. I was like, okay, and he had missed like maybe 3 or 4 days. I was like, oh, and I was like, you guys have seen him? He's like, yeah, I think he moved. So we went to the house and he was there. You should have saw his eyes when he saw me at the door. It's like, hey, what's up? I've been missing you. And so the mom was saying that they were having some things that was really out of school control, but he would be back there. So I had another student had missed a couple of days. I said, I'll come to your house if you don't come to school. Another student like, she'll come to your house if you don't come to school. But I think just them knowing that you care about them, that you want them to be here, just being that positive, having that positive environment for them.
Awesome. And then finally, just my last question is just, a lot of times you'll hear students say, they don't find school fun or enjoyable. How do you redefine what fun looks like in your classroom in particular, and how do you set that tone within your class?
Well, I tell you, we start out every morning it's music. I love the song Lizzo Special, so we sing that. We have mirrors. We talk about how special you are. And like one morning I kind of forgot about it. It's like, Miss Butler, you forgot that. But I think if it matters. And if you try to keep and create an environment where they feel like they are wanted, that they are special, that you want them here, they're going to be here. It's all that engagement. it's all that engagement. And I think it's our delivery. I think we've come up with some strategies in our curriculum where we look at the delivery of our instruction. I recall last year we adopted a new curriculum, and some of my kiddos they had a play downstairs, so they came from specials like, Miss Butler, we got to go downstairs because we're part of the play that they were doing in their classroom. So I think they're trying ways to make it engaging for the kids, and I not only at Fillmore, but I think district-wise that we're trying to do that.
Awesome.
So,
Love that engagement. Love it.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so-
Well, thank you so much for being here
Thank
today.
you so
Appreciate
much,
the conversation.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
Tim Stinson talks rules, regulations, and strategies with Davenport School Superintendent T.J. Schneckloth and Rock Island Milan School District Superintendent Dr. Sharon Williams. They talked about programs in place to help students who are chronically absent and new policy considerations to further reduce chronic absenteeism.
One of the key issues that school districts across the country constantly are running into this issue of chronic absenteeism, which impacts students' academic performance and also their future opportunities. Today we're joined here with Dr. Sharon Williams. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right. And again, welcome to the Quad Cities here. This is great. I know you've had a few meet and greets. Things. How's that been going for you?
Yeah, so upon my entry in May, the school district partnered with several community partners to have meet and greets. We met at Hy-Vee here in Rock Island. We also met out in Milan at the City Hall. We were able to also meet at the Martin Luther King Center here. And we've had great support from our community, families, students coming out to those meet and greets. I've been once over at least 3 times to each school and been able to meet with all of our school leaders, teachers, et cetera. It's been a very welcoming experience.
That's wonderful. I'm glad to have you. Glad to have you aboard here. Could you share some of the current strategies being implemented right now within the Rock Island Milan School District in addressing the chronic absenteeism?
Yeah, so first I'd like to just share some information about where we are with chronic absenteeism.
Yes.
Our state, that's part of the measure for our Illinois State Report Card. And last year, the Rock Island Milan School District had a 38 percentage points of our students are chronically absent. And what that means is that students who are chronically absent have missed at least 10% or more of the days of attendance in school for 1 year. With a student attendance timeline of 178 days, that means students have missed upwards of 18 days of instruction. That is quite alarming for us, and it's probably about 12% above the state average for chronic absenteeism. So we're very concerned about this issue and glad that this is a topic of conversation. So some of the things that we've done so far is first just to monitor where we are with absenteeism. We know as the year goes on, students need reminders, families need reminders about where they are in terms of their current absenteeism rate. So just today we looked at our current attendance rate. At the beginning of school 3 weeks ago, we were at 97%. The third week into school, we're at 90%. So that tells us that we're beginning to drop off in our attendance rates, and that's when we can intervene. So we'll intervene early. There are lots of different strategies for different age ranges of students, and I'll kind of start from the very early students and go up to high school and secondary schools. So in the elementary levels, getting scholars to school is very important in terms of working with families. We do have some wraparound services. We just had a conversation Tuesday night with our Board of Education around school counseling, social workers, and psychologists, and talked about how scholars are helped in school if they have some mental health issues, social emotional issues, etc. That's one way we wrap around services for the elementary school students, in addition to having nurses in each of our schools. So as you can imagine, many early childhood conditions take time away from being in school. So having a nurse on site at each of our schools really helps to keep many of our scholars healthy and able to stay in school. So that's another way we support scholars in the elementary schools to be in attendance. In middle school and high school, relationships are very important to scholars, so we are always looking for ways to connect scholars with teachers or to be engaged in clubs with others. So activities are very important, athletic activities, but also clubs and other organizations that mid-teens and teenagers can join to be engaged in school. One thing that is also very important just to keep students coming to school is being engaged in their classroom. So helping teachers understand how to better engage students through lessons. At the high school level, it's getting scholars to each one of their classes during the day, so making sure that we're paying attention to students who may miss certain periods of the day to make sure that they have a full day of classes.
I'm gonna go back to the elementary school because it seems like with almost anything, you start someone young, and if you can catch them then, and their parents at that time, less to have that problem when they get into high school and things.
Yes.
So part of the conversation with the parents, talking to the parents. I know this. We've talked about what you're doing with the students and things. How are we connecting with the parents?
Yes, so each one of our schools has a family and community engagement team. We have a department here at the central office that helps support those teams. And some of the ways that they help engage families in that area is by having family workshops, having events at the school that help families understand what's happening at school, how they can help their scholar get to school on time, how they can help their scholar with homework and other work issues. And it also gives them an opportunity to learn about wraparound services that can help the family so that the family can support the scholar to get to school on time.
Okay. How can when you look at the district itself, Dr. Williams, and I'm a parent, but my kids are grown and things, but, how can I, help in this situation? Is there a way for that to happen?
Absolutely. So last Saturday, I had the opportunity to meet with the Rock Island NAACP Religious Affairs Committee, and they were asking what the faith-based community could do. So I talked to them a lot about the mentoring that's needed for some scholars to feel welcome and having someone to talk to at school, having those incentives that I talked about with elementary school students, just someone checking in with them other than their family, other than their teacher, other than their principal, so that they will have something to look forward to come to school. I think those are two big areas that can help with that. That family engagement and family support and the wraparound services that community members can provide, community partners, faith-based community partners, is important because families are struggling after the pandemic, and what we've noticed is that big drop in attendance really has to do with the family unit, making sure that the family is secure and has services so that they can re-engage their students back into school.
Okay. Wanted to, and I wish we had a lot more time because this is a very interesting and important topic that we're talking about and things. But Dr. Williams, I want to look at being a superintendent now in this district here, also your resources. Are you reaching out to other districts as well to see what's being positive and working in other districts out there across the country?
Yes, absolutely. So I have a large network, having worked in 5 states and different districts. That helps a lot to know, but also the Quad City superintendents are a very tight-knit group. We just met very recently at United Way of the Quad Cities, and part of the way we connect is just by having conversations about things of this nature. What are you doing about attendance problems? What are you doing about e-learning days or academics? So definitely reaching out to peers in this area, but across the country. As you know, this is not just isolated problem to the Quad Cities area, but this is nationally, we are seeing very high in attendance rates for scholars. So reaching out to other superintendents in this area, but also networks across the state. I'm also, as a new superintendent, I have a mentor and a cadre of new superintendents, and we meet with our mentor at least weekly. And those are forums that we can get good information and ideas too.
That's wonderful. That's
Yes.
awesome. Thanks. Well, wrapping things up, we appreciate you taking time here with us, Dr. Williams, and talking. Is there anything you would like to leave for the audience that we did not touch on that you really want to get that information out about?
Yes. So the biggest thing is that chronic absenteeism leads to a whole host of academic and social concerns for students. It's important not only for students to be in school every day of the school year. We have a 178-day attendance school year. It's important when you miss a day of school, you're missing instruction for that day, and that snowballs over time. So if you are absent chronically 17, 18, 20 days, you can imagine how far removed you are from your academic success. So anything we can do to get scholars to school every day, to stay all day, and to get them engaged, I think is extremely important. Inviting the community into the school to, as I mentioned, have someone other than their teacher, other than their family, encouraging them to come to school and to do well in school, that goes a long way. So I invite everyone into our schools to volunteer, to help us with incentives, to get us excited about going to school.
All right. Well, here we go. The school year has started, and looking forward to it. So thank you again, Dr. Williams, for your time.
Absolutely.
And we appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Chronic absenteeism. It's a major challenge for school districts nationwide, all across the country. Today, we have the privilege of being with the Davenport Community School District Superintendent. Welcome, TJ.
Thanks for coming today and visiting with us.
It's good. It's good to be here. Wanted to have a good conversation with you about, especially right now, school season just started. I don't know where this year went, but it went fast, and now it's back in session and things. But students being absent, like I said, it's a big problem, big major situation nationally. But let's talk about the local here. What is the district doing going into this year? What are some of the plans to handle that?
Well, we have a very firm foundation of what we do when students are coming to school. But the first thing that we do in any one of these situations is we raise a general awareness. So you go outside of our schools, you'll see our campaign is Strive for Less Than 5. And the other big theme that we have is let's show up together. And so let's come to school, let's be together, let's show up for one another. Our staff members inside of our building will show up for you. And when you're having troubles getting to school, we're going to help you figure out, well, like, what are your barriers to coming to school? And we're going to put together a plan, and we're going to help you. And so that notion of strive for less than 5, you know, we're still in a climate and a culture where when you're sick, we want you to stay home, right? But the second you can get better, come on back to school. There are things that are outside of our control that you might have to take a day, or you might have to take care of some business. But after that, get right back to school. Nationwide, when we travel around and we talk to employers, the number one thing they want from all of their employees is to show up.
Right.
And so that's why we brand ourselves, let's show up together. Because whether you're talking to John Deere, Genesis, or Davenport Schools, we want our employees to show up. And the second thing is we want them to care while we're there. And that's why we've branded that message. That's why we carry that out inside of our buildings every single day. Because that's what our community wants that's why there's such an emphasis on this. Because it's incredibly important to grow up as a productive member of society and show up to your place of employment. Showing up also matters in your relationships. It matters being an aunt or an uncle. Everyone wants that person that's going to show up for you and show up together. And so that's why that message is incredibly important. And I think that's why you're seeing it be such a big issue across the country.
Okay. The message, I love the message. Strive for 5, correct? Now, that's for grade school, middle school, high school. But do you see any difference in some of the reasoning why there's, the absenteeism that is so large between a grade schooler versus a high schooler? Are there any differences there?
Absolutely. So sometimes the expectation when you come to school needs to be established. So as our students go through our school system, they know and understand the expectations. And so getting that out, letting everyone know that our brand is to show up, strive for less than 5, be here almost all the time. But if you are absent, let's keep those absences under 5 a year for an entire school year. If you're doing that, you're well within the national norm. And so that's why we strive for that. Your original question was like, so what do you do about that? So let's say we've got a family. Each one of our buildings has a team. It's called the Student Intervention Team.
Okay.
And that team looks at their students that are having difficulties getting to school, and they find out, why is that occurring? What's happening? Step 1, reach out to the family and do some investigating. What's going on? And sometimes the barriers that we have the ability to reach out to a community partner and eliminate are very surprising. What a simple alarm clock would do. Maybe a phone call. We have school members that call family members every day. Say, hey,
oh, that's wonderful.
Is everything going okay? Sometimes it's a food insecurity. Sometimes it's I've got to get to my medical appointment once a month and I have troubles doing that. Sometimes it's my car broke down. Well, our schools are hubs of the community, and our principals, counselors, and other staff members, secretaries, our paraeducators, all our nurses, those people have deep connections into the social services in our community. And sometimes it's a medical issue, For example, your son might need a knee surgery and might be out for a couple of days. And so communicating with the school, getting that schoolwork, making sure that that's all caught up is all incredibly important. So those are some of the things that we do to help our students overcome that chronic absenteeism. And you notice the pathway that we choose to take is one of a positive nature that helps build the relationships.
That's good to hear.
Because it is a requirement. It's a law that you send your kid to school. Mm-hmm. And that is fully backed by our legislature this year. And our legislature made it very clear that there's heavy consequences if you don't come to school. We don't ever want our families to get to that point. So that's why we approach things from a positive standpoint.
I like that. Especially when starting with the young ones, because we all grow up and you get us young enough and on that positive pathway, I think that's excellent and stuff. How are the kids working with each other? Or, I'm sure it's kind of not a competition, but, hey, I saw you got this prize for, your attendance or whatever.
Anytime you're using a positive reward, it has that effect. Mm-hmm. You look up and you see your friend receiving some type of an award, you want that award. So that does sometimes motivate students to move in that direction.
That's good. You talked a little bit about the community, and I want to go a little further with that and helping with this chronic, situation here. So myself, I have no kids in school anymore. Grandkids are down in Texas and out west, but no kids here anymore. But someone like me in the community that has a non-student, is there ways that I can help with this situation?
Absolutely. The very first thing that anybody in our community can do is sign up to be a mentor.
Okay.
One of the things that we like to do is we like to attach human beings, mentors, to our students who have the most need. And there's multiple ways to do that. We can reach out to the district office, Big Brothers Big Sisters, those types of organizations that really do help provide a positive influence in our students' lives. That old saying, it takes a village to raise our children, and that's exactly what a mentor can do. So we actually have a form here ready to sign you up to be a mentor if you would like. Sarah, I'll have one.
I like that.
No, but that's one way that we can help with that. And there's also organizations that help break down barriers for families. So you can give to United Way, you can give to different organizations that help find alarm clocks, that help. So anybody with that mission. School supplies. Sometimes kids don't want to come to school because they don't have the right school supplies.
Yeah.
So school supply donations, anything that's helping tear down any one of those barriers. But also, if you have a connection to a school, call them and ask them, hey, what do you need? one of the greatest gifts that I ever received was from a local community agency. Say, hey, a local gentleman in the community, he said, hey, I noticed some of the kids don't have the best shoes when they're walking by. Can I just, if a kid needs a pair of shoes, call me, I'll buy them the pair of shoes. So there's multiple ways that you can do that. And inside of our organization, we have people that help facilitate that. And so we always have somebody that can connect you with overcoming a barrier for a family, which is an awesome question to ask. And so if you're watching this and you would like to help, reach out to the schools. They'll definitely get you connected.
All right, we heard it. Reach out to the schools. I think that's great. Any other upcoming changes that you see happening to help offset this, absenteeism, this chronic absenteeism?
Well, I think it's very important that our community knows and understands the most recent change in law. So while it has always been mandatory to send your children to school, the updated law states that if you are chronically absent over a grading period, your name must be turned over to the county attorney. So I think it's what happens from there, whether or not tickets are handed out. I think it's very important for parents and families to know that is a change, and that schools are now mandatory for turning those things over to the county attorney. So I think that's important for people to know. But also, if you are having troubles getting your child to school, reach out to the school. Because listen, as I've stated, all those things that schools are willing to do, that is exactly what we will do if you reach out. And we will do everything in our power to help get your child to school, or the kid in the neighborhood, or whatever it may be. Or there may be an issue with the sidewalk. There may be an issue with snow removal that are causing these things. If you're in the neighborhood and you see a reason why kids aren't coming to school, reach out to your older person, reach out to the school. So there's anybody in the community that can help close that gap or bridge that or tear that barrier.
Right, that's wonderful to know, and it's just as easy as, like you said, just reach out to the school, reach out to the district, the alderman. Just reach out.
Anyone, yeah.
Next, Jasmine Butler spoke with Deanna and Diane Reed, a parent and grandparent of an elementary school student in Illinois. She also talked with Christina Derrick, an Iowa parent who has more than one child to take to school. They talked about transportation being one of the big factors in the issue of chronic absenteeism and what resources they feel are needed to help parents.
Welcome back to Real Conversations. Today I have Christina Derrick joining me as we discuss chronic absenteeism. Christina is the mother of 3 students in Davenport schools. Christina, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so again, we're going to be discussing chronic absenteeism. As you know, it's a nationwide issue that's being discussed, but also locally, we've been doing some things. Davenport Schools has been doing some things and preparing for that. So the new Iowa law defines chronic absenteeism as missing 10% of days in a grading period. So for example, a student who misses 5 days in a 45-day quarter is considered chronically absent. As a parent, do you feel this is an acceptable amount of absences in a quarter?
I feel both ways. I feel like it's acceptable to an extent. I feel that I do agree that kids need to be in attendance in school, but I feel like that sometimes, situations happen to where kids cannot be there, and most of the times it's, not the child, it's the parent, if the parent's sick, or, if the child's sick. So I believe that the schools could do a better job at making sure that they're prepared in a case where a child is absent and giving them the right materials that they need.
So for some parents, especially parents who are like yourself, who have children in 3 different schools, so you have one in preschool, one in middle school, and one in elementary school, with all completely different start times. So what are some of the biggest struggles with getting them to school?
Transportation, hands down. Transportation to and from school, especially when I work, early in the morning. It's hard to, schedule time out or get someone or a support system to go pick up my child or take my child to school sometimes. So I would say that would be the biggest issue.
Definitely. So what's a everyday like for you, if you want to kind of like walk us through that? What does that look like for you?
Okay, so it's the first first time I've had to do this because, of course, my youngest is in preschool. So still kind of getting a little bit adjusted to it, but it's waking up, in a ample amount of time to get up and make sure that my two youngest are taken care of for the day. If I take my youngest or if I don't take my youngest, I still want to make sure that she's up and ready to go to start her day. And then I will take them to a family's house, and then they will either walk to their school, or if I have to work a little bit later in the day, I'll be able to take my elementary school student, and then I will have to turn back around and take my middle school student because she starts at a later time. And so, yeah.
Yeah. So back to what we were saying, like if you're sick, then, that's all over the place.
Yeah,
like it's a train wreck if you're sick. Yeah, you can't be sick, right? So what happens if one of the other kids are sick? How does that kind of factor in with how the others get to and from school?
Yeah. I think having a support system is very important. So I will definitely try to reach out to my support system, but also they have children, they have things they have to take care of, they also work as well. So in an event where that does not happen, I will have to just, take off work and, do what it is that I need to do for my child.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, that's what we have to do as mothers. And we are so grateful for support systems. I feel you on that one, yes. So chronic absenteeism is a huge focus nationwide, as I mentioned earlier. So what resources do you feel as a parent of Davenport Community Schools, what will make it easier for everyday local parents like yourself with this mass issue and when life just lifes, and what would make this matter easier?
Sure. I think having more transportation options would definitely be a great positive thing for that, just because like we've mentioned that the 3 different times of start is gets a little bit hectic, and it's not like I can all the time take off work, come and take a child and go back. It just gets a little hectic. And also maybe offering before school programs and after school programs in order to allow parents time to get off of work. Because 3 o'clock is pretty early, not everybody works till 3. Right. And if we don't have that support system, it becomes a problem. And so having more after school programs would be helpful. I mean, I know we have a few in the area, but they're not enough. We have waiting times for one, and a lot of parents can't get their kids in that one. So it becomes becomes an issue. Also affordable options as well.
Yes.
Because everybody can afford a lot of the even with the transportation, not a lot of families can afford it. So having affordable options would be the main thing, I believe. Yeah.
So you said something very important that I think is just as much of a focus with the start time, but pickup time as well. So let's talk about that for a little bit. So because again, we have all these different start times, but then we also have all these different end times as well. So how does that impact parents as well, or you, for example?
So having the 3 different start times, I really feel like it is, 3 different end times. I really feel like it's not a horrible aspect to it, just because it gives you enough time to, if you have kids in 3 different schools, to, go your rounds and pick up everybody on time. However, if they were possibly maybe a little bit closer together versus like an hour in between, or even my middle school child in sports, so if it was maybe just like an hour or less than an hour in between time, I think it would be easier for parents to pick up all their children at the same time, because again, like I said, you can't just, I'm picking up one child at 3, going back home 20 minutes, picking up another child, going back home, and it just gets a little hectic. So
and working on top of that.
and working on top of that, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. So as far as like, so we talked about like, you know, the school district and, you know, the things that they have in plan. Do you think that those are good, reasonable, where they have it, you know, you get that warning to, you know, let you know, hey, you know, we've noticed that, you know, the little one hasn't been in school for 3 days or so, getting on top. Do you think that they do a good job at letting parents more aware of where they stand with attendance?
Yes, I absolutely think that they do, but I also think there needs to be a conversation had. I think communication is key in that instance because, you know, like I said, sometimes I think they kind of get it confused with parents who are just not taking their kids to school versus parents who are having issues getting their kids to school. So I really feel like before they send those warnings out, it needs to add something of if you have any questions or concerns or need any additional support, to give us a call and we can get you in contact with those resources if they are available for you. Because I've seen it so many times where parents get the negative side of that, and like I agree with it to a certain extent, but for those parents who are having a problem or need additional resources, I think that there needs to be a little bit communications with the school district and that said parent.
So that would be an area of improvement as a parent from last year and this year as well. That's totally understandable. I totally get that. I think that's a great option as well. Perfect. So yeah, is there any other things or ideals that you have that you think would work for more parents that are like yourself who struggle with just the ways of getting them there and those time frames?
Yeah, you know, I believe that maybe having even volunteer programs for I want to say other students, but then they don't get out till a later time, like the older students. But maybe they have, you know, a certain period in class that they can go and do a volunteer at a certain school, and maybe like an after-school program where they volunteer for an hour to help out, you know, parents and maybe get some experience with volunteering, things of that nature to help out with the elementary school students.
Today on Real Conversations, I have Deanna Reed and Diana Reed joining me. We're going to be talking about chronic absenteeism on the Illinois side today. So thank you, ladies, for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, of course. So Illinois' law defines chronic absenteeism as a student who misses 10%. That's 18 days of an average 180-day school year. As a parent, do you feel this is an acceptable amount? Why or why not?
I do find it to be excessive.
Yes.
But then given circumstances that could arise, illness, and then also transportation being the issue, I think that might be appropriate.
So as a parent, what does that look like when your child misses a day?
Well, we get a call from the school first asking why, if it's a doctor related or illness, or if it's like a family circumstance. Other than that, we just kind of follow up that way. She doesn't really miss much school unless it is something detrimental.
Yeah, totally. That's great. Great. So Rock Island Milan School District number 41 recommends students use MetroLink to and from for transportation purposes. MetroLink provides connections between many neighborhoods at no cost on the Illinois side. MetroLink also provides a transit app that allows you to track your students' ride in real time. How do you feel about this public transportation for students of all ages?
When I first heard of the idea, I thought it was a little inappropriate for all ages, but then I had to do some digging and find out would it actually work for myself, my daughter, and other parents that we know. And I called MetroLink, and it turns out that there was no, they call them transporter rides, to my neighborhood to the school. So it's a little misleading that way, that there aren't transportation to all the schools and in all the neighborhoods.
So what does that look like? So how does your daughter get to school every day?
So I have to take her, or my mom takes her, and we pick her up each day.
And how does that interfere with your everyday life?
Oh, it's nuts. I've had to change my jobs. I've missed out on some work opportunities because I can't. Her day starts at 8:10 a.m. Most jobs aren't starting after 8 in the morning. They're starting at 6, 7, so most parents are having to take their kids then at 8:10. Pickup is 3 o'clock p.m.
Wednesdays is 2:10.
Yeah, and Wednesdays is an early out for most kids, so that would mean you'd have to go to work after 8, and you need to be off work before 3 p.m., and I don't think that's realistic for any parent that I know.
It's not. It's hard. So if you didn't have the flexibility that you have, how would she get to school? Would she have to ride Metrolink then, or?
Right, or my mom, or some other support system that we would have.
Oh my goodness. So how do you feel with the option of having the app to kind of track there? Do you think that that's safe or even reliable?
Right.
Actually, I was going to tell you that route that they were telling you about, where she would have to be on the bus for like 45 minutes.
Yeah, just to get to
she would
school.
have to go from the house, and then she'd have to go to another, what's that?
Like a transport, where the buses connect.
She would have to sit there and wait. Now, this is a 9-year-old girl. Now, imagine a kindergarten.
Right.
That's not appropriate for a kindergarten to be riding the bus by themselves.
So scary.
It is very scary.
So, Miss Diane, what was transportation like when Deanna when Deanna was in high school? Because Deanna, you are a Rock Island graduate. So, what was transportation like then?
Actually, they offered bus service at that time. Some people's income wasn't appropriate. They couldn't have free transportation, but I would pay for transportation once a month. You would just pay for bus transportation.
Wow.
That was an option.
Wow. So it's definitely has changed drastically.
Yes.
Drastically. Wow. So do you think transportation is one of the factors in the issue of chronic absenteeism?
I would agree.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what are some of those reasons? Like, so I know that you guys are blessed to have, you have a flexible work schedule.
Yeah.
You have mom, grandma is accessible. So what would be, I don't know if you have peers who are dealing with the same issue in Illinois. So do they, if they can't get their kid to school, is it just a no-go, or can you get some feedback on that?
I do find a few friends and other moms that I have that are connected with my daughter are having troubles getting to school, and we've been in school since the beginning of August, and some of them have already missed like 3 days.
Wow.
Yeah, just because of transportation. And then the bus routes aren't always reliable. We were also told that it was it might not get her arriving to the school at the time that she would need to be. So the options are just not really realistic.
So then in situations like that, so does Illinois truancy? So does X amount of tardies equal absent?
We do.
So if your child is tardy for how many days, or how many days out the week or month, how many of those is equivalent to
I think it's 3.
I think it's 3.
So 3 that's very logic, and that could definitely happen with anything could happen during those transits.
Yes.
Wow. That's deep. That's real deep.
Then we have a lot of parents also who don't have cars or vehicles, so they're getting on the bus trying to get their kids to school and then taking the bus back home or to work themselves. So it's kind of this circle of unfortunate events.
It really is. It really is. Hurts my That's deep.
It is. It really is.
Deep. That's the only other word I can say. So, do you believe there's a better way for Rock Island Milan School District to communicate with families about the chronic absenteeism, or even ways for transportation?
I think we're pretty fortunate at the school that my daughter goes to. Her principal is a huge advocate. He's been trying a lot for different students of all backgrounds to have transportation because he knows the difficulties that parents have been going through and missing work and having to change jobs. So I feel like having those advocates, even like this platform here, that's just, I think, really going to help get the school district more involved in seeing that there's an issue not with absenteeism, but the leading cause being transportation.
Yes, I agree. Did you want to add anything else to that, Ms. Diane?
No, she said it very well.
Yes, I strongly agree with that too, yes. Well, thank you ladies so much for joining Real Conversations. I hope that your daughter has a very successful school year this year, and kudos to you ladies for being that tribe and that support and making sure that she gets there every day.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode of Real Conversations, brought to you in collaboration with the Lincoln Center.